All right, what is going on, guys? We're just minutes away. It is stage number 10 of the 2026 Dakar Rally. Getting ready to get started here in just a few minutes. And well, we're counting them down. We're finally into the double digits. We have stage 10 today, which is the second half of the marathon stage. Heard early on, again, a little bit of that strategy, trying to play it safe, make sure we get to the bivouac safe and sound with a clean bike, clean vehicle. Although obviously some trouble early on, some people getting lost very early in the stage 9, figuring the way through it, but then getting out there. So we'll see how this shakes out here. Real general on that one, but I think there's going to be a big change up coming here soon. And I don't know. I have some predictions on the stage win. I'll keep them quiet. But I think there's a couple of people in this pack at the front of the bikes that are long overdue for a top podium spot. So we'll see how this stage shakes down. All right, so we're going to jump into it. Tonight's episode will be super short. We're just going to go right into stage number 10. We'll do the map preview, and then we'll do the stage briefing from the organization, and we're going to call it a night because it has been a long day. All right, here we go. Stage number 10. The graphic is on the screen. 6:47 a.m. sunrise, 1750 sunset. That is going to be 5:50 p.m. Today's stage breakdown is the Refuge Marathon 2 to Bisha. That is going to be their bivouac for the night. But in order to get there, they're going to have 0% asphalt, 34% dirt track, 28% sand, and 34% dunes. So this stage is the biggest dune stage so far for the 2026 rally, Dakar Rally. So we'll see how this turns in. And then the dreaded 4% stone track. So I don't expect to see maybe a lot of tire stuff. As Ricky Brabeck in an interview mentioned, that the sand is obviously more forgiving on the tires, and you don't see the tire wear. So they should have a really clean run. Towards the end, we'll go over the stage briefing here in just a minute, and we'll see where those rocks lie. Okay, taking a look at the map on the screen. Obviously, they're going to have a really short liaison to start the day at 7 kilometers, and then they're going to do a 368 selective section. So 368 kilometers of selective section, followed by a 45-kilometer road section to get to the bivouac. Total day for them is going to be 420 kilometers. So not too long of a day. 368 kilometers isn't bad, but with a lot of dunes this time around and more sandy stuff, we'll see how beat up these guys get. On the map, you will see they've got 2 lines. Once again, we've got the blue and the yellow. On stage number 9, there were a few comments made. Vehicles getting lost in the dunes because they didn't have bike tracks to follow. So that was changing things up towards the front, and obviously a couple of vehicles going over in the dunes and changing up the running order. So we'll see how that continues. And if you guys want to see this, so that was a comment that was brought up earlier. The Dakar Rally organization this year, the ASO and the Dakar YouTube channel, has done a phenomenal job bringing to you all the highlights, the interviews and stuff like that, and putting it into basically a mini movie of about an hour every day. So they cover a lot of the different things. They cover a lot of the different interviews and vehicles and stuff like that. And so if you're interested in seeing more of that kind of stuff, the organization has put that kind of information out. I want to focus on the maps, just the basic hard evidence or the hard facts of what these competitors are facing. So again, not knocking on anything. I just want to make sure that everybody gets to see it. Here in the U.S., Rally Raid is not the big draw that it is, but with a couple of Americans, more than a few Americans doing very well at this year's rally, obviously the wave is starting to grow. So we'll see how that shakes down. Okay, that's enough of that. Let's get back to the map. On the blue line, you are going to have, that is going to be the bikes. That'll be the FIM, and then the FIA will be the yellow line. So FIA is for the vehicles. FIM is for the motos. Motos look to have a more direct route on this one. It looks like say, for instance, to the first neutralization, they've got 122 kilometers to get there, but yet the vehicles are going to have 154 kilometers to get there. So a little bit of a longer way. They're taking the tour through the dunes where the bikes are getting more of the direct route. Once they get into the further down the road, they're going to cross again roughly at kilometer 193, and that's going to be closer to 238 for the vehicles. So definitely some changes there. You know, obviously the tracks are getting a little bit faster. Bikes seem to be pretty fast through the dunes. So we'll see how the stage times finish. All right, so we continue on down. So first neutralization is going to come at 122 and 154. 122 for the bikes, 154 for the vehicles. And then from there, the next neutralization number 2, is going to be at kilometer 238 for the bikes and 280 for the vehicles. And they will continue on until they reach the finish line. There is a control point at kilometer 341 for the bikes and 385 for the vehicles. And they're going to have a finish line at kilometer 368 for the bikes and then 420. So a little bit longer, actually quite a bit longer day for the vehicles on this go around. 420 kilometers for the cars versus 368 kilometers for the bikes. You notice there is a yellow line there, and that is the transfer, and it says for T5.2. So it looks like they're going to be sending the big semi-truck guys around the dune section or around that initial part of the stage. It'll be interesting to see on the breakdown what is in those first kilometers. Really, they're skipping them out until the kilometer 280 of the vehicle route. So something must be in there that they don't want these guys to see or go through, or could be trouble for them. Okay, so we went through the fuels. We know where the neutralizations are for stage number 10 of the 2026 Dakar. Let's take a look. First bike is scheduled to leave the bivouac at 6:45 in the morning, taking a start time of 7:05 a.m., which means 8:05 p.m., which is coming up here in short order. 7:15 a.m. for the first vehicle to leave. That's 8:15 p.m. here on the West Coast. 7:35 a.m. for the first vehicle to take the green flag. And that is going to be 8:35 p.m. here on the West Coast. So that is the stage breakdown for this one. Let's take a look at the timing. First bike, we already know, green flag at 7:05. They're expecting that first bike to be in the bivouac at 1:41 p.m. local time in Saudi. And then the last bike with a green flag at 8:39 and expected to be in the bivouac, it looks like roughly 21:36. I'm trying to do the math in my head. I know you do subtract 2 and then call it a day or something. I don't know. All right, 21:36. If you know what it is, readily available, comment down below. All right. Closing control at 2300. So that's going to be 11. So it looks like 21:36 should be 9 o'clock. You figure I would have a watch already changed to this time, talking about it so much. Okay, that is for the FIM. Let's see what the vehicles are scheduled to do for that stage, because I have a feeling that these guys are going to have a much, much different. Let's see, stage information. Let's jump over to stage number 10. We'll go to the map and the stage timing. First vehicle, 7:35. They're expecting the first vehicle at 13:39. So 1:39, that makes that a pretty close finish to the bike. So they are expecting them roughly at the same time. They are expecting the last vehicle in at 4:18 in the morning. That is wild for the cars. I feel sorry for them. But they're making it happen, and they obviously, it looks like they've still got a fast day, but the vehicle field, we know, is much, much longer. The last vehicle, if the first vehicle starts at 7:35 in the morning from the green flag, 10:08 in the morning is when the last vehicle is scheduled to leave the start of stage number 10. So let's jump over and take a look at the briefing for the stage. We'll get that up on the screen here in just a second for you guys. There it is. All right. So this is going to be FIM, FIA. Looks like they're both pretty similar in there. Let's see here. So very straightforward. Normally they give a stage breakdown of what to watch out for, but they went straight to have a good day on the stage and watch out for these vigilance points. So let's go over the vigilance points. Again, these are the points where the organization said, hey, you got to pay particular attention to these things. Kilometer 124 for the bikes, presence of a camp with animals. Kilometer 148, same thing there, presence of a camp with animals. So as these guys get into these areas, they got to watch out for camps, especially if it's in dune section or something hilly or coming around a corner. They might run right into a camp that's just off the track, camels, different animals that they may have out there. So got to watch out for that one. All right. Kilometer 319.37, WPS in the dunes. So very interesting. This is the first time in a stage briefing that I'm seeing them specifically call out a WPS. WPS, waypoint safety, in the dunes, mandatory to keep to the right between dunes and rocks. So obviously there must be some kind of landmark, some kind of drop, something that will gobble the bikes up and lead to the organization having to come and handle things. All right, so that is the vigilance points for the FIM. Let's do vigilance points for the FIA. Kilometer 4201, power pole with guide wire or guy wire. Assuming there's going to be a section they come through, they've got the telephone poles. Obviously, they've got the support wires. Could lead to an interesting day. Kilometer 103.69, numerous broken dunes over 2.8 kilometers. So sounds like a lot of backside drop-offs and really short, choppy whoops or choppy dunes. Hard to get a rhythm. 167.05, steep dune descent. 171.38, steep dune descent. So now they got two of those called out just a few kilometers apart. So these guys must be in some really big dunes. Then from there at kilometer 218.92, poor HP, horse piste, with uphill traces and barely visible downhill section. So hard to see, really small, and like basically animal trail HP. They're doing cross country, not any kind of marked road. There are going to be some uphills there, and then it looks like the downhill section, you're barely going to be able to see it as you come up on it. 222.44, sand funnel behind the summit, barely visible. Interesting thing about sand funnels, Sonora Rally a couple of years ago, there was a bike, I believe it belonged to Matt Ransom. I could be wrong there. But at the Sonora Rally, and the bike was basically at the bottom of the dune in this huge sand funnel. And Sonora Rally director and co-creator Darren Skilton had to use all of his skills navigating the sand to be able to get that bike out of there, all the way down in that section. Apparently, it was a pretty steep descent, and it was a really big funnel to go down and get there. So these things can suck you in. And then it's just this vortex. You're going to be in there. If it's a vehicle, you better have some talent, because that could lead to a very, very long day. All right, let's get to the bottom of this. 259.33, difficult trial section. When these guys are saying trial, I got a feeling they're talking about like rocks and basically some mountain goat stuff. 400.77, mandatory right turn to bypass a campsite. So they don't want you running in through the middle of camp somewhere there. So GPS tracks from there, but looks like everything else is pretty much done. This is going to be a good stage. Very interesting that they didn't put any of the notes kind of describing what the stage was going to be like. I don't know if at the stage briefing while they were there, if they gave them any kind of additional information. But if this is what they got, it sounds like they're going to be basically sending them off into the wild as is. In the general information, they just basically give them the motivational speech. It's going to be tough. It's going to be sandy. It's going to be soft. The things that we kind of already assumed, especially with such a high percentage of dunes on this particular stage. So we'll see how it goes. Let's get this thing going, because these guys are just a few minutes away from getting started. Let's hope for the best, and we'll see what happens. I think we've got that race coming. We're at stage 10. We've got stage 11, 12, 13, and that's a wrap. You've got 10, 11, and 12. So today's stage, tomorrow's stage, and the day after, because 13 isn't going to be for making big leaps. I really doubt that we're going to see that. I think it's just going to be about solidifying that position. So these guys are definitely starting to run out of room to be able to get to get to that podium or solidify their spot on the podium. So we'll see how it shakes down. We'll see you guys in the morning for the preview or for the results show. And then we will continue on with this rally. It is the 2026 Dakar Rally. We'll see you guys.